is true that we cannot depend on government alone to create jobs or long-term growth. But at this particular moment, only government can provide the short-term boost necessary to lift us from a recession this deep and severe.
Barack Obama just days away from his inauguration, pointing to government as the only solution to America's economic problems. The simple statement marks a huge departure from what's been Washington gospel ever since Ronald Reagan, at his first inauguration, said this.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
So the question in a nutshell is, can government really spend us out of this mess, or will it only make things worse? And our political experts here to talk about that. Republican strategist Kevin Madden, New York Daily News columnist Errol Louis, and CNN senior political analyst Jeffrey Toobin. And Jeffrey, we should mention, we just talked to Congressman Barney Frank, and you have a profile of him out in the latest issue of The New Yorker on newsstands right now, right?
Everything you want to know.
About Barney Frank. But, I mean, he essentially said this is, despite whatever differences you may hear Democrats and Republicans voicing about the stimulus plan, it's going to get done. They're going to make whatever compromises, whatever deals need to happen to make it happen.
And I don't think there's any doubt about that. A plan will pass. And the interesting thing about this controversy, as opposed to anything else in Barack Obama's career, is that eloquence doesn't matter. All that matters are results. The economy is either going to get better or it's not, and it's all on Obama now. And that's why this economic debate is so important, because there really is a total sea change in what economists believe. Deficit spending, this is very much a Keynesian, Franklin Roosevelt-style approach to fixing the economy. We'll see whether it works.
Well, and you still hear, Kevin, on the other side, you know, House Republicans still embracing those core principles of Reaganomics, free markets with less government intervention. At this moment, when a lot of people are feeling that it was lack of regulation, lack of oversight that sort of got us into this mess, is that a winning message anymore?
Well, it's probably less of a realistic message, I think, the small government. It has to be much more about smarter government, and how do we take important actions to modernize the way we look at government so that we don't have this problem, that this problem doesn't arise again. I don't think, Campbell, that we arrived at big government because of a big, strong ideological push by either Democrats or Republicans. I think the situation that we're in right now is largely the result of necessity, that the government bailouts that we've had with the auto industry and with banks have largely been driven by the spiral that the economy has gone into in the last few months. And Republicans, I think, in order to make a more palatable argument to voters and to their constituents, they're going to have to talk about the smarter government that we're going to take, the smarter steps that we're going to take going forward.
But Errol, I think one of the interesting things is it doesn't seem to be Republicans versus Obama here. I mean, many of his, the complaints you're hearing are already, and look, it's been not even 24 hours, are coming from Democrats. Barney Frank hinted at it. John Kerry got out in front of the cameras today to criticize the tax cuts. Are you surprised Democrats are being so vocal in their criticism?
No, not at all. I think this will be probably the last time that they can do this. I think everything's going to change after the 20th, when there's real legislation on the table, and we're talking about a sitting president, not a president-elect. I think there may be a little bit more discipline as far as the legislative agenda. But I think it's really interesting. There are some Democrats who are saying, in a way, if you listen to John Kerry, what he's really saying is that it doesn't go far enough, that you don't have to put the political sweeteners like business tax cut or payroll tax deductions on it, that what you really should do is just help with unemployment, help with food stamps, go straight to infrastructure spending. And then there are some other Democrats who are joining the Republicans in just saying, small government is better, let's not expand the size of government. And so those are really two different kinds of arguments. Obama's going to have to learn to argue with both of them.
But on the politics of this, do you think Democrats are really willing to cut him off at the knees at this very early stage? Or
these senators and congressmen, they're not potted plants. They have a role here, too. They are allowed to negotiate their position. This is a project that is susceptible to compromise. You're talking about billions and billions of dollars, whether it's a $700 billion or $900 billion. That's a perfectly appropriate role for Congress to play, and some negotiation is appropriate. I don't think that counts as cutting him off at the knees. As Barney said earlier, a package will pass. It's just a question of how it will be precisely negotiated.
And do you agree with that, Kevin? Ultimately, Republicans are in the same boat as Democrats here. The whole country is sort of waiting for something, and they're going to reach compromise fairly quickly.
Yeah, and I think that was where Obama was going today with his speech. I mean, he really did stress the urgency and the gravity of the situation. But to Jeffrey's point, I think that, you know, on Capitol Hill, having worked up there, there is a lot of chest puffing because they do want to remind the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue that they do have an important role in this process. So it has much more to do with protecting turf, protecting protocol, than it does that they want to cut off their own presidents at the knees.
But I think Republicans have a very interesting political dilemma here, because do they say, no, we're not for this, so that if things don't go well, they can say, I told you so? Or do they go and say, look, we're on the team too? I think that's a real tough political call.
Yeah, and I think right now, Jeff, that there's a lot of folks a lot of Republicans sitting up on Capitol Hill, and they think the biggest threat right now is the factionalization within the Democrat Party against Barack Obama.
We'll see what happens. To Kevin, to Jeff, and to Errol. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We got a lot more ahead. The worldwide recession has cost some investors far more than their life savings. Up next, they have lost a lot, but by any measure, they are still ultra rich. So why have some turned to suicide? And then a little bit later, Oakland erupts violent protest after the fatal police shooting of an unarmed man. We're going to have the latest on that when we come back.